Longest.
Let's go, Tyler. Shoutouts to Lin Guy.
Fighting games are steeped in tradition. Almost any tournament has acts that are weird to us but are culturally accepted to them. You ask yourself, why are they always saying it's Christmas?
Yeah, oh, we got a Merry Christmas. That's it right there.
Why do they keep taking their shirt off?
A lot of emotions here. It's an especially difficult spot.
Woo! Oh, here it goes. There it is. We've got
The energy at these events for 20-plus-year-old games that most people would have forgotten about are vibrant and full of passion. At one of the biggest tournaments in the world, a 25-year-old game had one of the main stage events, and this game is 25 years old. That's me and the 5-year-old. Some people love these games more than their own family. They perform ritualistic habits to either power up by taking their shirt off or sometimes screaming at the top of their lungs. To show their dedication to this culture, there's even a dictionary for every single piece of unique fighting game terminology. And this goes on for pages, showing that each one has its own culture and ritual that created the word. So when we were given the opportunity to create a study on culture and games together, the answer was staring right at us. Fighting games attract such a dedicated fan base and ritualistic behaviour.
Ritual.
To answer our burning question, we went to the back page, which hosts a weekly almost every second week, and we went to ask the contestants some of the questions. There is no formal difference between play and ritual.
Sports like football and basketball are known to have these traditional performances to enhance their beliefs. This can be seen with LeBron's classic chalk throw pre-match rituals. Such traditions and ritualistic behavior can also be found within fighting games as well.
And the FGC has their own things that strengthen their beliefs and values during a game. For example, sitting upright, putting headphones on. These moments from the start of the video became ritual after being done so many times, and yes, many more shirts were taken off.
Okay, the fan. Oh!
A lot of emotions here. It's an especially difficult spot.
Woo! Oh, here it goes. There it is.
Good sportsmanship is often repeated between fighting games and sports. Post-game handshakes, fist bumps, and hugs are signs of these rituals, being repetitive and symbolic to show respect. Through this ritual play, Savage Society acquires its rude forms of government. We interviewed players at the back page, and the response relating to sportsmanship is that it crosses over games as it's natural. The fist bumps and handshakes that we expected before going to the site do happen.
John.
Despite online matchmaking of fighting games become more of a standard within recent years, we found that the reasons of how the dedication of the FGC fanbase continues to maintain its longevity are the fans' initiative to host and organize gatherings for players to play together. One of the players had been playing fighting games for more than 17 years, and he started to host venues and gathering a year after he got into the genre. It can be difficult to find enough people interested to join in and socialize, but they can always make it happen, as is evident of the venue we were in at the back page, Fisborough.
Their dedication comes intrinsically, through intrinsic motivation, and it's this intrinsic motivation that dedicates them to play games that are almost 20 years old. When asking around the back page why they played games that were so old, they told us no game was like that, and that the time they spent on that game made them so dedicated to it intrinsically. Intrinsic motivation is likely responsible for the preponderance of human learning across a lifespan.
We asked the question to the players we interviewed, is it either the competitive or the social aspect of the FGC that maintains its longevity? The consensus was that it's more towards the social aspect rather than the competitive aspect. We found that the people who come solely for the competitive aspect initially do not really stick around for long, but for some people who come for the social aspect would eventually get competitive too, as said from one of the tournament organizers of the Backpage venue. Two are naturally intertwined within the FGC.
John.
The culture surrounding fighting games has always been materialistic. You spent money to spend time in an arcade, or you spent money to have time with the game at home. Within the Irish scene, maybe people are more intrinsic, but on a larger scale, people have more materialistic goal that keeps them dedicated to fighting games. Fighting games have more in common with chess than Pac-Man. Winning comes not from having the fastest fingers, but rather the sharpest mind, internalizing the necessary expertise, doing research into what works best and continually striving to find the right level of challenge in order to create a constant dedicated improvement within the art. We see Todd Harper compare fighting games to more competitive games than arcade games here. And it's obvious why. A game that can be won against someone else will always have a reward in the culture, whether that be a materialistic thing or something on the intrinsic level. But it's that reward that very much so dedicates someone to a fighting game. Feedback. In relation to our question, we spoke earlier about how some of the things we saw at the event linked back to ritual and dedication in the community. What parts of us going to the back page actually linked in with our question and combined it all together? While the Backpages event was more social, there was drinking and food, there were still things we picked up on that are clear signs of ritual within the community. One of the people in our group that was kind of outside of the community noticed a lot to do with controllers in the games they were playing. You might not think that the different controllers people use have a lot to do with ritual and dedication, but it really does. People sink around €100 on these controllers that they just use because they've always used them. They feel like they're better for certain games. It kind of shows you the lengths people are willing to go for the things they love, and it shows you how dedicated they are. They do it to keep the gameplay consistent, and this is one of the clearest examples of fighting game ritual that we saw in person. When we asked why in the back page, people told us they were willing to dedicate that amount of money to be part of something, part of a community. And people have used controllers like this for as long as fighting games have existed. It's just always how it's been. It's always been ritual. Some of the people in the space were travelling up to an hour and 30 minutes, whether that be in a car or on public transport, just to get somewhere physical where they can play games with people. It's clear to us now that this sense of community is one of the driving factors in the dedication in the fighting game community. A culture that is incredibly male dominated, and this is an unfortunate ritual of the fighting game community, as in the past they have been hostile to women, and the prejudice in this community has made it incredibly male dominated. We can only hope that in the future they make more changes like they have been, to make the space safe for everyone. I would like to believe we're heading in the right direction considering all the representation in newer fighting games. But we do have a long way to go. As we saw on the back page, the turnout was nearly 100% male. Or huge crowds of players, usually young men, clustered around one game that allows head-to-head competition. Reflection! Whether it's the competitive side, or the high adrenaline fights and rivalries between the different players, or even the moments where people celebrate, and the social aspect of the fighting game community is on full show. Each and every one of the sides of this community has its own ways of dedicating its players and creating rituals within those spaces. The competitive and social aspects of the community are intertwined. One could not exist without the other. And to partially answer the question, it's the competitive and social aspects of the community that create these post-game and pre-game rituals. And after visiting a site that had an active tournament going on, we realized these rituals that create tournaments and tourneys and communities create the dedication that is so apparent in the culture.
With a dedicated fanbase that is filled with distinct ritualistic behavior, it is how the culture of the FGC remains vigorously to this day.
I would also like to thank Ryan and Aster for helping me write voice over this video and also actually go to the event and do all the study and get all the quotes and stuff like that. Thank you guys very much. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. Thank you!